I think he's ready.
Thank you.
Too ready.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Harrison Township Planning Commission meeting. Today is Thursday, June 16th, 2016. Call the meeting to order at 7:03. Roll call, please, Mr. Olgiati.
Member McDougal,
Present?
Member Caminello,
Here.
Member Garvin,
Here.
Member Blum,
Here.
Member Olgiati, President, Member Basha,
Here.
Chairperson Murray.
Present. Thank you. May I have approval of the agenda as presented, please?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mr. McDougal. May I have a second?
Support.
Mr. Bloom? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes from our May 19th, 2016 meeting. The only question that I had, and I did not have an opportunity to watch the meeting because I couldn't find it on our local channel, and we'll address that during comments at the end of the meeting. Let's see if I can find it. On the second page, 2/3 of the way down, and the Sunsport Marine item, Mr. Raguso stated that they were open to suggestions and that they didn't have an issue putting trees every 35 feet along 16 Mile. Well, I noticed on the documentation that we received, it's every 30 feet on our plans that we have, so I didn't know if that was a typo or if that should read 30 feet, or if he meant 30 feet, or if we need to address that now before we approve these minutes.
I would have to re-listen to the tape, I don't remember offhand.
Okay. That was the only thing that I had a question about. Anyone else? Does anyone remember?
I remember the discussion, and there was a discussion over the 30 versus 35,
Okay,
and I do believe that Mr. Russo said that whatever was required or whatever the commission desired,
He
he's
would
good
apply.
with. So maybe we need to ask the planner what's required, but I do remember the discussion between 35 versus 30.
okay. I just wanna make sure that if we approve these minutes and we indicate here that it says 35, that we're not locked into that. If we choose to, make it anything else, should we approve this item?
Madam Chair, I think at the meeting that was clarified, and I think I had first indicated that the spacing required is 30, but the ordinance actually is 35 feet.
It does say 35?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Maher.
So to that point, because what prompted this conversation is there is a conflict on two different documents. And the way I remember the conversation going on this was, the applicant said they would install them consistent with the ordinance, was how it came back.
Okay,
Is the response.
all right.
Yep, that's my recollection.
And if the ordinance is 35, then I'm comfortable with saying 35 here. I just noticed that on and since I wasn't here during that meeting, the only plans I have are the ones that show the placement at 30 feet. So I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't if we were to go in that direction.
So I believe these minutes are accurate.
Okay. Okay, that being said, Mr. Bloom? A motion?
I will move to approve the minutes from the May 18th meeting, or 19th meeting.
A second, please?
Support.
Mr. McDougal? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Hearings and review. Mr. Olgiati, would you please read our first case?
Yes. Our first case is public hearing, case 10-16-PUD, Macray Properties LLC, 30675 North River Road. Amend PUD for outdoor seating area, patio adjacent to restaurant and banquet center.
Thank you. And our public hearing is not open, so why don't we go ahead and open that, and then we will hear from the applicant. May I have a motion, please, to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Mr. Bloom, second.
Support.
Mr. Tominello. Uh, Roll call, please, Mr. Olgiati.
Yes, Member Bloom,
Yes.
Member Tominello.
Yes.
Member McDougal,
Yes.
Member Garvin,
Yes.
Member Olgiati, yes. Member Basha,
Yes.
Chair Murray.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Hello, how are you?
Hi, Madam Chair, members of the board. Again, Lawrence Scott appearing on behalf of the petitioner, McRae Properties PUD. We were here rather last month and presented our concept plans. We took into consideration everything that everybody has given to us. We submitted the drawing. I've had conversations with your planner, Mr. Maher, and with the exception of the, what we talked about when we were here the last time with respect to the bollards that need to be shown on the plan and weren't. Other than that, I think we picked up all of the considerations that were on the plan, and so we're asking for your support tonight to try to get this thing through, subject to our submitting a revised drawing showing the bollards and to the specifications that the township requires.
Okay. And Mr. Scott, I actually had picked up from our minutes that in addition to the bollards, the location and spacing of the bollards, there was discussion on the emergency exit,
Correct.
capacity and table configurations, and fence details.
Okay, with the break-style gate we showed on the right-hand side of the patio there, the table configuration I haven't gotten to you, and that I can get to you. We did show the 4-inch curb, and, well, I'm sorry, what was the fourth thing?
Fence details.
Okay. And that, I think, hang on for 1 second. Oh, I'm sorry, we showed a vinyl guardrail per the Michigan Building Code is around the outside of the fence.
Okay. And you had indicated the emergency exit is,
There's a breakaway style gate so that we can't, if you're looking at it, it's to the right of the fence, so that people can't get out unless there's an emergency there. We don't want them leaving that patio and wandering around the parking lot. We want to keep it closed, but if there were an emergency there, they'd be able to get out that way.
okay. I don't think I do. I don't think I have the.
I wanted to clarify, you do not have new plans. They were just delivered to me on Monday.
May I have, thank you.
You seem to think that they did.
I apologize. And then part of this is my fault. They were sending me copies of the drawings. I was out for surgery for a week, and so I didn't realize that you didn't get them until.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you.
I wasn't sure if you wanted to look at them.
Just, if you could give us just a minute.
Take your time.
to
I'm
take a
sorry.
look at these,
I
please.
apologize.
Thank you. Ah, there we go.
Yeah.
Breakaway gate,
There's better. I'm sorry.
much better. Okay. Yep, there's
You'll
the
see
curve.
where I talked about the vinyl guardrail for the building code. That's in the notation just above the patio, the breakaway gate to the right, the
Got it.
4-inch curb. I did not get the table configuration, I apologize, but certainly I can get that to you. And the bollards, I said, as I indicated also, those were supposed to be shown and were not, but I'll get those on the revised
Okay.
drawing to you.
Mr. Scott, I guess I'm a little confused here by the fence as it's shown on this drawing. And I'll try and walk you through that for just a moment.
Sure.
As I understand it from looking at this, the existing curb, mulch, bed, and shrubbery and all that's gonna be removed between the existing building and the existing south edge of the parking lot. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
There's a 6-foot thing where there's existing
Yeah.
landscaping, that's coming
Yeah,
out.
that's all gonna come out. That's gonna be, is that then gonna be paved or?
Replaced with new poured concrete to match
Okay,
the existing
okay.
walkway.
Okay, I'm looking at the description that's up in the gray. I didn't notice the description below.
Okay.
So if that's gonna be like a concrete walkway type area.
Correct.
If I look at the drawing where it shows the fence, and I'll go right to where the breakaway fence gate is,
Correct.
and that is in the coding for the vinyl guardrail per Michigan Building Code, but it stops right there at that hash mark on the or the south side of the existing parking lot, the north side of the mulch. It doesn't close anything off, so people are free to walk off. The pool area closes off, but they're free to walk off toward the east side of the pool. And when I look to the west side at that same hash mark, the long line, the space, the short line, the space, the long line type of marking, it also ends at the south side of the parking lot on the west end, and there's nothing to prevent people from walking right out that way and walking into the parking lot. I thought that you were going to control people, so that the only access to this was through the restaurant down the steps.
That's correct, and that line,
It
where the
stops.
breakaway gate's showing, that line should be brought all the way down to that to the building.
To the pool, to the base of the
Yeah, so
pool.
that can't go out that way.
Right, and,
The Liquor
and,
Control Commission won't let us do
yeah,
that either.
I'm with you.
Yeah,
And at the west end, where that comes, comes just to the south side of the parking lot, it doesn't show it continuing
it's
down to
gonna
the
have to
stairway.
pick up where that, you're right, and it's gonna
Gotta
have to
pick
pick
up
up where
and
that
close. You got-
walkway is.
You gotta close it, it's gotta be truly enclosed.
Exactly.
We're in agreement, it's just
No
got.
question
You
about
gotta
it.
do it, okay.
Yeah, like I said, the LCC would not be happy.
Okay, so really fence details, bollards and table configuration and
Right.
capacity
Yes.
are still missing. Okay. Any other info to share?
No, I think that's it. If we can try to get this approved, subject to us providing you that information and your planner's approval, we'll try to get something done and save part of the summer.
Okay. Well, do we want to, we'll listen to the public, and if you want to take a careful ear to questions, and I will do my best to catch them all as well. Okay, public hearing is open. Does anyone like to come up and speak to this item?
I'll get out of the way. Let's see if I can avoid the rush.
Nobody? Okay. Do we want to include board comments, or shall we go ahead and close the public hearing?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
Okay, Mr. Tominello, supported by Mr. McDougal. Roll call, please, Mr. Olgiati.
Yes, Member Nominello?
Yes.
Member McDougal?
Yes.
Member Garvin?
Yes.
Member Blum?
Yes.
Member Najati, yes. Member Basha?
Yes.
Chair Murray?
Yes. Public hearing is closed. Okay, discussion, questions for the applicant? So technically, we were waiting on the formal submission, the final site plan. So this really is not the final site plan. It's close, but because it is missing those items, it's clearly not the final site plan. Correct?
He's hoping it's fine.
Yeah, I guess
Oh, I mean,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I thought you were addressing the applicant, Madam Chair. I was
That's okay.
taking a look at the plan as well. Yeah, I mean, this is their final site plan request. Obviously, if you feel it needs the corrections before you take action on it, that's one avenue. Or you can make a motion to approve it subject to the corrections. You know, if you recall, when this started, this was supposed to be a much grander scope of a change to the site, and I'm not even sure that, based on the scope that was actually submitted, just this patio, well, I guess we probably would have had a public hearing regardless, but perhaps it wouldn't have been called a PUD amendment. You know, at some point in time, it was talked about having, you know, some weddings outside and things like that down at the, or at the
And it's
riverfront.
significantly
So-
smaller than originally proposed.
So, you know, all that being said, you know, certainly, as long as all the issues that you've pointed out, you know, the only other thing is, I took a look at the occupancy on it, and based on the square footage, I think the occupancy will be limited to 50 people based on a common standard of 15 people per, or one person per every 15 square foot, and typically, it wouldn't be allowed to have occupancy beyond that, but that would be determined by the fire department.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions by the board?
You know, one more question about that breakaway gate, and I forgot to mention it before. Is that gate gonna be alarmed?
Should be.
It should be.
Yeah.
I
No, I-
assume it's, you don't show it, that's why I'm,
Yes, the answer is yes.
yeah, okay.
So let me just ask a quick question.
Sure.
When I look at these plans, and Mr. McDougal, this may be the answer to part of the question. Is, where the breakaway gate is,
Yes, ma'am.
and where it extends toward the building,
Right.
there is a line, left to right, indicated proposed patio is written above it.
Right.
And then it extends all the way to, almost the staircase. Is that fence line as
No,
well?
that's just to show the dimension across the 36 feet. That's not,
Okay, I get it. All right, so 20 feet here, 36 feet here. Okay. Okay, so the fence would extend from the edge of the breakaway gate all the way to the building,
correct.
and then the same would apply to the other side as well.
Well, it's gotta run,
Well-
it's gotta run the walkway on the
It's
other side.
gotta go all the way to the walkway.
To the stairwell coming out
Okay,
of the
and
building.
so you would continue a fence, let's see, that would be west,
Right,
all the way to the walkway,
right.
and then have a gate there as well.
Well, it's gotta come down the walkway and into the patio.
Okay.
The only gate that would have is the breakaway gate, otherwise they gotta go back through the walkway and back into the restaurant.
All right.
They're not allowed to leave the patio and go into the parking lot.
Okay, so that would extend all the way down the staircase.
Correct.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I have two more questions.
please.
My first question, and I'm gonna ask it mostly of Patrick, because it's one that just comes to mind. Where the breakaway gate is there,
Yes.
as I look at the way the gate is, it's gonna swing partway into the parking space that they intend to keep according to the notation in the second parking space. It says this parking space remains, one immediately adjacent to the eating area. Are there not some clearance standards of some sort for exit? That gate has to swing, and if a car is parked in that parking space, it may well block that gate fully opening.
It definitely could. You know, they're showing this gate at roughly 5 feet right now. And certainly, you know, that could be brought down to a handicap standard of 36, so. But again, even if it were 36, you might very well, they're not showing the full swing radius on that.
And what's the ability of a crowd to safely exit in a hurry if there's I'm just
Yeah.
seeing the worst of all things, but with what's going on in the news today.
Right.
I'm sure that's
Right.
not justified.
So could we request then that that one additional parking space remain as a non-parking space, but a
That's,
sectioned off?
Yeah, or that the gate open inward, either way. I don't know
exit
code-wise if
gates
they
have
can do
to,
that.
have to open outward if,
Could be, but, I don't know.
I
Brent,
believe.
building? Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
You're talking about swimming pools and all that kind of thing, I know they always do. So, that's an issue, I don't think it causes a parking space problem out there, a number of spaces, so I think we're safe on that side of it. And I had another question, I forget what, oh, I remember what it was. Again, I claim a little general knowledge, but not detailed knowledge. As I see it now, the access to this place, to this seating area, is not handicap accessible because you have to come downstairs. Does that have a problem for him? I don't want to see that come up later.
It indicates 4 steps.
You have to come down steps from
Do
the,
you have an additional
Room.
flat surface area?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
is there handicap access, and is it required?
Yeah, I can't claim to be an expert on that either. I don't,
Yeah, I think we could do it more.
yeah, you know, I know that there are certain eating establishments and bars, that, have upstairs areas that are not handicap accessible. Now, they're able to get through that only because they offer the same service down on the, first floor
Okay.
as they do on the second.
That's
So I don't know if that same standard would apply to an outside, patio as, you know, associated with an indoor, and that's probably, something they
can-
would have to look into,
I
'cause
get that, but I think that's probably,
They can
yeah,
certainly-
needs to take a careful look before he
I can think of a lot of
finalizes it.
places that don't provide for
Yeah.
that, but you're right, I need to look into it.
Just a comment, accessibility through the patio is going to be from the inside only, Mr. Scott? Or is it gonna, so you're not gonna be able to entrance the patio from the outside? So I'm assuming that the inside is handicap accessible, so
Right.
I would imagine
is.
the ingress egress will be
Yeah.
on the inside for that, so I don't think they'll have to worry about ramps or
Yeah.
steps out there.
Again, just the thought that came up when I realized
Right.
there wasn't access, so it's better to ask the question now than
So
hear
you
the
can
problems
get from
later.
the inside of the building to the patio without barriers?
No,
I mean, the handicap, if you can get into the building,
you go into the building,
and then
Yeah.
can you get to the patio from there without steps?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Oh, okay, so
No,
that's not the way I understood it. then.
Right. Okay.
I
No,
don't
you,
believe
you have to walk down the steps, as I understand it, to get to
Right.
the patio. That's both, not just obviously patrons, but that's also employees, and I'm not sure about employment issues with
could
that
it-
either.
Could a handicapped individual enter through the breakaway gate?
Well, that would be for emergency only, so that would violate
If it's
your
alarmed, I think you got,
Michigan liquor
and
license.
you got liquor things, yeah. Liquor
Um,
Control Commission issue.
I don't know what the requirements are for but I've often seen that where there's instead of steps, there's a low-grade rise, flat surface, paved area. Easy to walk on, easy to wheel up and down on. I don't know if that's an option.
There's room to do that too. I've seen that done with the sloping
Yeah,
thing for
yeah.
handicap. I've seen it done parallel to stairs also.
Yeah,
In public venues particularly. So that's another
I wanna
possibility
check and
to,
see what the requirements
Whatever.
are and then go from there.
Yeah, I think that's probably an issue that our building directors addressed during the actual design period, but certainly something I'm interested in finding out the, answer to.
yeah, shared.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that.
Anything else?
Let me just ask the applicant, or Mr. Scott, a question. If a ramp is required, and you're asking for approval tonight, would that condition be acceptable?
Yeah, we'd either have to do it or scrap all the plans.
Right.
I don't see that as being a substantial cost.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how a ramp would get set up there. I went out and looked kind of carefully, and I think it would probably have to go outside of the stairwell and then parallel it and come down, would be my best
In
guess.
addition to,
Right.
So you're looking at adjusting another 3 or 4 parking places probably out here too in order to accommodate it. So I don't know if that's something that we want to keep a handle on it until it's decided exactly what needs to be done and what he's going to do
what's
with
the,
it.
guess we should probably find out what the requirement is for, since the inside of the restaurant is handicap accessible.
Yes, no question.
And
Green
I don't
elevators
know
are
if you are
second floor.
required to make the outdoor accessible as well. I don't know what those requirements are, so I guess that's really kind of out of our, that probably falls to the state of Michigan then. Okay,
Liquor Control Commission in the state and all the people with handicap.
The barrier-free board,
Yeah,
which
yes,
I've had the
thank you.
pleasure of.
Oh, it would come under ADA compliance too,
yeah.
Exactly, so I think, you know, if.
And there's also an employee issue too.
which ADA covers
ADA,
both
yeah,
public
yeah,
access and
Right.
employment.
So Brent, can you put that on your list to? Excellent, thank you, kind sir. Okay, any other questions for the applicant?
I think we wanna hold this.
Any other comments from the
No,
applicant?
I'm good, unless I can answer any other questions.
Okay.
I really think with all the loose ends, it probably would be wise to table this until we get a final set of plans and final information from the applicant, but that's my opinion.
Are you stating that in the form of a motion, Mr. McDougal?
Okay, I'll
Just
make a
thinking
motion.
out loud?
Yeah, okay, I'll make a motion to that because of the numerous loose ends, and while individually, most of them are not real significant, with the addition of this whole thing with the walkway that could adjust the entire appearance of the westerly side of the
Do-
area here and the parking areas, I think that we should table this matter until we get final plans.
A motion by Mr. McDougal to table, to account for the, items listed and the fence details, the bollards, the table configuration and capacity, the, barrier-free, accessibility, and, the, parking lot, space being left open east of the breakaway emergency gate. I think that was it, yeah? Oh, and then the, the fence details, the continuation of, each side of the fence. Second, please?
Support?
Motion by Mr. McDougal, supported by Mr. Batchel. Discussion on the motion. Do we feel that any of these, all of these, could easily be addressed by our building official in a timely manner, so as not to hold up? And because we're looking at another 30 days. I'm not going, I'm just bringing this out. We would be looking at another 30 days.
Yeah, I understand that, and I just have one quick question, because I've been around this planning commission too long, I will admit that. But I remember that about 10 years ago, there was a big fracas, and I've forgotten who was the chair, but there were some plans, because the chairman signs off on the plans. And the chair signed off on some plans, and a couple planning commissioners didn't like the fact that they'd been signed off on, because there was something they still didn't like about them. So I'm just throwing that out for fun
Okay. Okay.
on the issue.
No, that's good. That's what the discussion's all about, so.
But my view on this is I do think these are minor issues that can be handled administratively through the
Yeah.
processing or the amendment to the site plan and conditional upon ADA compliance. So I do think that these are minor issues that should not delay this project.
So if we, and I do agree, you know, if we look at our policy in the past, if there are major issues, we definitely would table, because we want to make sure that we know what we're looking at. I think this is pretty much straightforward. I think through the minutes and the conversation and the motion, the issues will be identified and managed by the building official, and I can surely get an agreement, or I guess an acknowledgement from the building official as well, if that can be,
Yeah.
would that be an acknowledgement? Yes. So I would be in favor. I mean, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't seem like there's anything major.
Any other discussion on the motion?
I also agree with Member Tominello. I think that the summer times are too short around here, and I don't think, if the scope of the project was like we originally thought it was gonna be, very large, they're gonna have old weddings at it and things along that line, but for a 50-person patio, I would like to see us possibly see what we could do to work with them and move along. Mr. Condon seems like he's more than willing to take that into consideration, so I would, think that he would be a good judge of that.
So I'd only comment, fair point. I was actually to that point too. The only thing that persuaded me to maybe hold off, because the ramp in my mind becomes pretty significant, that does become a constraint. I was good until that conversation started to
Sorry.
surface.
Mr. Batchel.
But fair point. I mean, I understand everything else. That's what threw
So-
me the other way.
So, Mr. Batchel,
Yeah,
let me
that's-
ask you a question. I mean, if in fact this is approved conditionally about the issues that are outstanding, if there is an ADA ramp that's, needed, the motion could say that you have to come back and provide the plans, if that is absolutely needed for this, that way, first thing they're gonna need to do is to find out if it is ADA compliant, or if it needs to be added. If that's the case, I agree with you, because there are gonna be some major changes that need to be done. So maybe a motion, we have a motion on the table, so I'm not gonna make it,
Thank you.
but maybe a motion just stating that, all the other things, the minor issues will take care of it. If anything, if a ramp does have to be put in, that, it would have to come back to us at the next meeting. At least that gives the applicant a fair chance to go and do the investigation.
I've got no problem with that, and that line, with Mr. Batch's concurrence, I will withdraw my motion and make a motion that says, well, let's see, do we have to do anything first?
No, you can.
I think you can withdraw as long as, and we'll accept
Yeah.
Mr. Batch's,
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
accept the withdrawal.
accept the
Yeah,
withdrawal.
Okay, and I'll just withdraw.
Or he can amend his motion.
I'll
and you
just-
can-
Well, I guess that we're at that stage now anyways. If we've withdrawn the initial motion, we can
Yeah.
go to the next
Yeah,
step.
the
Yeah.
alternative is if you withdrew your support, then
Yeah.
it would have
Yeah.
to. find
Right,
another
and I'll-
time.
Though,
Yeah, and I'll-
if I may, before we go there, since this was, did this not require, since this was a,
Five-quarter rule.
We
a
hadn't,
PUD, don't we have to, normally procedure is you have to wait till next meeting? Do we have to,
was this not presented last meeting, and is this not the next meeting?
No, that was a preliminary,
yeah,
Ah,
this is the first
This is
meeting.
the
and
first official?
This is the hearing.
Right,
right, because
this
we
is
just
the
closed
public-
today.
Okay,
This is the
so-
public
So
hearing.
in lieu of that, Mr. Batchel, you are correct. So what I will do is I'll make a motion to invoke the three-quarter rule, which, for those of you who know what that is, that gives the board here an opportunity to vote or present a recommendation for this project tonight, rather than waiting 30 days on its merit. So I will make that motion.
I'll support that motion.
okay, so, Mr. Tominello, Mr. Bloom, to impose the three-quarter rule to invoke the three-quarter rule to allow us to, make a motion this evening. Roll call, please, Mr. Olgiati.
Yes, Member Tominello.
Yes.
Member Blum.
Yes.
Member McDougal.
Yes,
Member Garvin.
Yes.
Member Ojani, yes. Member Basha.
Yes.
Chair Murray.
Yes, okay. Mr. Tominello, you have your three-quarter rule.
okay, I'll go ahead and make the motion, I guess, then. I'll make a motion to approve, this plan as presented with the conditions that the table configuration and seating capacity, meet the standards, set, by the fire department, that the bollards be placed as discussed in previous meetings, that the fence details be completed as discussed in this meeting, that the breakaway gate be indicated as being alarmed on the plans, and that if Mr. Congdon decides that, and in his research finds out that there is a barrier-free access needed, that the barrier-free access matter be brought back to this commission before the construction is done.
I'll support that if you would add that, if we find that there needs to be ADA access, that revised plans come back to us as well.
Okay, you're saying
So not only coming back to us, but with revised plans.
with revised,
Because
comes
the-
back
the
with
plot-
revised plans,
Because the
yes.
plot is gonna change somehow, so we would wanna see that.
We need revised plans to be signed off on, so that, I
Correct.
thought that was just,
Did that
Inherent, yeah.
motion, and I'm sorry, I was checking these off, did that include that the parking space
Thank you, Mr.
be
Meyer.
left open and striped
Yes.
as no
I was going
parking?
to add that.
fine, I'll
To the
add that the
breakaway.
the parking space adjacent to the breakaway gate be, left open and striped, clearly marked as
No parking.
no access, no parking.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. McDougall, seconded by Mr. Tominello, as presented. Discussion on the motion. Roll call, please, Mr. Olgiati.
Member McDougal,
Yes,
Member Tominello.
Yes.
Member Garvin,
Yes.
Member Blum,
Yes.
Member Ojani, yes. Member Basha.
Yes.
Chair Murray.
Yes,
Thank you very much for all your help.
thank you. Okay, give us a moment to clear the deck.
thank you, Patrick.
Okay, Mr. Olgiati, our next item, please.
Yes, it's gonna be, public hearing number 2, consideration of amendments to the township zoning ordinance, residential setback and yard determination factors, accessory building location standards and definition clarification, zoning board of appeals decision timeframe validity, and clarification of porch patio location criteria.
Okay, and I believe the public hearing was opened last meeting, and it's still open. It was requested to remain open, I believe. I just tossed it. I believe that's how we have it.
Madam
So-
Chair?
Yes, sir.
Just refresh everyone's memory, I think that one concern that was brought up at the end of the at the end of the discussion anyway, had to do with the section 505A1, which had to do with the central air conditioning units. And quite frankly, the lack of side yards in many cases due to the narrow lot configurations throughout the community. So, you know, that was the one item I think you did want to review over the month and discuss at this meeting to see how you wanted to handle that. You know, the one way we can handle it is simply to allow the location to be within the side yard and not meet what it says now is you can have it in the side yard so long as you meet the minimum side yard setback requirement. And what we could indicate is that you may have it in the side yard, however, shall not, similar to the rear yard criteria, that it not be beyond the extreme ends of the side of the house, so that we get these things sticking out in the middle of nowhere.
So, as it's presented here on the documentation.
Well, this hasn't changed. This is the same, you know, I didn't want to confuse everyone by bringing in something different without discussion taking place.
Okay.
So I didn't know which direction you folks want to go with this, if you want to leave it the same or if you wanted to modify it. But I believe, I think Mr. McDougal had made the comment
Yeah.
on this at the previous meeting. And the more I thought about it, the more I think it probably does pose a hardship in many cases.
So, and if I could comment on that as well, and I've been talking to a lot of people over the last couple of weeks regarding this. And we have a lot of issues relative to the side yard setbacks for air conditioner compressors, especially along the waterfront or on narrow lots. And as you know, probably 1/2 of the lots in Harrison Township are narrow lots, which means that you would never meet that side yard setback. I can tell you, if you drive around the township, many homes have the compressor on the side of the house. If it's permitted or not, I can't say, but there are several that have that. The other thing I want to talk about is, you know, the compressors nowadays are a lot different as far as noise production than the old ones. The new ones are so quiet, it makes, it doesn't make a nuisance if it's in the side yard. It would be virtually, you know, virtually wouldn't hear it if in fact it was in the side yard, because I think that may be some of the concern. So I don't know if maybe it's a combination of maybe decibels and, you know, maybe a minimum lot size that you would grant that, or I guess just
I think we'd
suggesting-
have a very difficult time regulating decibel levels on something like
Okay.
that. You know, we could require that they put some type of a screening wall, so at least it has some type of impact to deflect noise. And, you know, I don't mean a wall by any means, but a screening fence of some sort.
So arborvitae's would, or fence or something like that.
And use whatever, but, you know, fencing to me seems to be the least encroaching anyway. You can put it within a certain setback from the air conditioner. I'd leave that to the expert down at the end, but,
And actually, I'd like to get some feedback from the building official if we could on this subject.
I think that would help a lot if they were allowed in the side yard. But I think you'd have a bigger problem with generators being allowed in the side yard, so you might have to stipulate between the two of them in the ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah, because generators are significantly louder,
Yes.
especially the ones that are automatic and they run a self-test.
Yeah, they all do.
Once a week.
They all do.
Yeah.
They all run like a
Permanent ones.
15 or 10-minute self-test.
Well, thoughts?
So are we distinguishing, in terms of the generators, are you talking about side yards no matter what the width of the side yard, or are you just talking about can't be in the required side yard?
Required side yard.
Don't
So
allow
it
them into
meets
the,
the setback, so
as long as they meet the required
for
side
generators,
yard,
yes.
6'8" or 7'7" or whatever.
Right, correct.
I would tend to agree with the comment about generators, being the owner of one, and having it in a side yard. And I have a 12-foot side yard, so that means that the extreme of it is about 3.5 feet off the house. So I'm totally in
You're in
compliance.
compliance, right.
And I have as big a side yard on the other side, so I don't have a 6-foot, 8-foot problem. But I know in my next door neighbor's house, it's the garage is the only thing that fronts against my side yard. But I know that, when it comes on and she's sitting out back in her patio, she doesn't like it. But if it's sitting in my backyard,
Everybody.
she's
is-
still gonna hear it.
Sure.
whatever.
Mine's
I mean,
both.
I think yeah, whatever, I guess. The words are the words, and
Yeah.
I think it's reasonable to let the building official make that determination.
Make a reasonable determination on a case-by-case basis.
Because really, when you get down to it, the delta will only be marginal
Yes.
anyways. It's gonna
Yeah.
be so marginal that,
The discussion is good strictly from the standpoint of it gives some guidance when the ordinance comes in to what the thought was. And I think we wanna be reasonable about that kind of thing, cause we don't know what is gonna come out in the industry in 5 years that might make a major change in what everybody might wanna do with their replacements, so.
That's why I'm
That'd be
wondering
nice.
why we need the terminology comparable to existing units. If we take that out, it simply says replacement units may be installed at the same location, and that would subject to the building official what goes in there. Same location is acceptable,
Point
and
well
whatever
taken.
unit's appropriate at the particular time can go in.
Unless the original location is deemed,
Okay. Some people in the room are familiar with the generators, and I'm just gonna use the generators because it's a good example. And because I have these units exist within 10 houses of my house in the neighborhood. A generator that a lot of people have is a 7 or 8 kW generator. It's a very basic generator. It has limited capacity. It will not support an air conditioner, et cetera. A commonly sold generator is a 15, 17, and 18,000 watt generators. And those will support, in a 2,400 square foot house, let's say. They will support the house, but they probably will not support the house and the air conditioning. If somebody wants to support the air conditioning in the house and the whole house, they basically have to go to a 25 kW unit in the market today. Well, a 25 kW unit is large,
and pricey,
yes, but that's beside the point.
I know.
And I'm not sure how far we want to go with
So you're saying large
With-
equals large sound and.
where there's not some level of
Placement and-
limitation. Yes, yes.
So with that discussion, I think we leave the my feeling is we leave the language as it is and let the building official manage that. I think that's my personal.
To a reasonable standard, because I think it would be reasonable if somebody's got a 7 kW unit and they decide they want the whole schmutz with 25 kW.
Yeah.
That's-
You know, if it's 6 inches longer, 6 inches wider, the building official may say that's not a problem.
I'll make an analogy. That's the difference between go-karts and NASCAR. And I think that's a point where the reins need to be pulled.
But then you
but to
offer,
the point, on the air conditioning units, there's really no risk. You're never gonna increase it by 2.
Yeah,
'cause it makes
yeah,
it even
no.
inefficient for AC units. So
I-
the risk is gonna be
yeah.
the generator.
Yeah, I
Always.
limited my comment to
'Cause
generator.
that's the
on
risk
on
of,
yeah.
of expanding scope,
yeah.
as a generator.
Yes.
And that puts, Brent in that position
Different
that
world.
if you went from a 5 kW to a 25 kW, that is not comparable now. Maybe one could argue, but it's in the building official's eyes if it's comparable or not at that stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, in 5 years, a 25 kW may be the same size as a 16
Maybe.
kW.
And
Right.
quieter.
And
And quieter.
And quieter.
Yeah.
so
So
are
who
we
knows?
talking about leaving air conditioning units, generators, and other similar mechanical equipment in the same paragraph?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah, with the sub-paragraphs to separate.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Maher, did you get all the dirty details on updating that paragraph?
I think I have it based on the discussion you've had tonight.
Okay. Anything else that you wanted to discuss in detail? So on the second page, the add subsection K to section 10, 18.04, items 1 and 2. This is in addition to what's currently there, further expressing the ZBA.
Right, this comes from the previous ordinance. It was noticed by the building department that it was removed from the new ordinance, probably unintentionally, but just putting a deadline that, if a variance is granted, it doesn't exist forever if there's no action taken to follow through with it, because conditions may change
Right.
during that time. There might be new buildings built or whatever adjacent to whatever variance is granted, and that could have an impact.
Is everyone comfortable with the next section? 12.10, front yard setback modifications? That's just setting the front yard setback to equal to the average of the existing buildings where the right-of-way doesn't meet the proposed.
I think we had extensive conversation at the last meeting, probably about a good 45 minutes
Okay.
worth, if I'm not mistaken, and,
I know
I
we've
think that was kind of what we.
discussed it
what
in
we-
the past, yeah.
That was kind of the direction I think we were all looking to go at.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Everything else looks okay to me. Any other discussion from the board? No? Okay. So our public hearing is open. Would anyone like to come up and speak to the ordinances that we've discussed tonight? Anyone? Going once? May I have a motion to close the public hearing, please?
So moved.
Excuse me. Mr. Bloom, may I have a second, please?
Support.
Mr. McDougal, roll call, please, Mr. Olgiati.
Member Blum,
Yes.
Member McDougal,
Yes.
Member Tomanello.
Yes.
Member Garvin. Yes. Member Olgiati, yes. Member Basha.
Yes.
And Chair Murray.
Yes, public hearing is closed. Okay, so do we need a motion then to accept these changes as discussed?
Typically, this is your public hearing. I'm not sure that we follow the rule on text amendments in the past, whether or not you would act on it. I guess you didn't have a whole lot of public commenting tonight on this, so, if you were comfortable with it, I'd say go ahead and make a
Irrelevant.
motion to recommend the changes as discussed tonight
Okay.
to the township board.
This is just our recommendation.
Yep,
Not
our
So then,
approval.
then we'll have a final,
Yeah, I would,
Final
I would
document
clean
with
this up and send it to Rosemary to be put in legal format.
okay, and then it'll come to the Board of Trustees.
That's correct.
Thank you. That typically 30, 60 days.
Usually at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so do we have a motion then to recommend said changes?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Tominello?
I'll support that.
Mr. McDougal? Roll call, please, Mr. LaGiatti?
Member Tomanillo?
Yes.
Member McDougal?
Yes.
Member Garvin?
Yes.
Member Bloom?
Yes.
Member Olgiati, yes. Member Basha?
Yes.
Chair Murray?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, that takes us to our next item. Mr. LaGiatti?
Yes, next item is, unfinished business, case 08-16-SLU, Whittlesey Development, Sunsport Marine, vacant land, northeast corner of Prentice and Metro Parkway, property number 17-12-21-103-002, zone GC, boat retail sales and service facility.
Thank you. The public hearing was held and closed, and we've had a month to review the plans, the documentation, do our site review. Discussion from the board? Is the applicant present? Do you have anything to share? Anything additional to share?
Yeah, I think we had a good.
You want to come up to the podium, please?
I mean, I think we addressed most of them during the public hearing, a couple times we've been here. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them, but
Okay.
he's excited about trying to put a dealership there.
Okay, thank you. Well, we are in receipt of a letter from our fire chief, Mr. Lopez, indicating he reviewed the new submission of plans, and the fire department has no additional comments. Based on the minutes from our last meeting, there was discussion regarding additional screening to the north and west side, whether or not additional evergreens should be present to provide deeper separation. And then trees every 30 feet, but as discussed in the beginning of our meeting today, it was determined that the ordinance calls for 35 feet. We can determine whether or not we need a development impact statement if we so choose to go in that direction. Any other comments from the, questions for the applicant?
Question for Mr. Maher. Mr. Maher, this, we're approving the use here, and relative to a site plan, I know we have conceptual site plans, but I mean, this, if it was approved, it would go through a full site plan review. Is that correct? I mean,
Well-
total site plan review?
Yeah, this is the special land use slash site plan review, so these both at the same time, you know, we've always done it in such a way where we lock the special land use and the site plan together, so if any changes come in that are fairly significant, we hold another public hearing to
Yeah.
address the
Yeah,
changes.
well, I guess my point is, you know, if we wanted to go, if we wanted the applicant to maybe add a little bit more nautical, you know, look or something like that, that would all happen in the site plan review, correct?
No, this is the site plan review and the special land use hearing, so this addresses both the use and the site plan.
Okay.
So the plans that are before us, this is it. I believe the section that's shown near the drain easement on the north side of the property, where there currently are showing six trees, I think this was the area that was discussed for additional evergreens based on the minutes.
Yeah, you know, Madam Chair, I think right now it's indicating six, what I recall are six deciduous trees
Yeah.
up there, and my only thought is that's not gonna do a whole lot for screening, and,
Right.
you know, the question was, you know, is that adequate, and should that perhaps spread out a little bit more to the west as well? And that's something that you as a commission will need to determine.
definitely need to see some more screening up on that north edge. And the other thing that we talked about a little bit was, traffic, how much traffic was gonna, route itself into the residential area, and I know there were some residents who complained about, the street link up from Prentice and people being able to go through and actually be driving through to get to South River Road, to get over to, to get to South River Road that way, as opposed to getting back out on Metro Parkway, at which point where they're on here, they have to go down, make the UE and go back through the whole Jefferson signal system and get up to South River Road. And there was thoughts that that was going to cause some problems, and I know there was some discussion of no right turn signage being required on their exit. And I think that's something that we need to require here. I've gone out and driven over there and looked at it several times, and I just think that's a highly residential area, a lot of, there's different streets, and I'm not sure that there'd be a huge volume of traffic, but I just don't see why we should expose those people in our township to that.
So actually, Mr. McDougal, I did review that as well, and I guess my solution was, right now, the street coming into Prentice, or the side street, or the area attached to the development actually has a flare to turn right or left. Mr. Maher, can the flare be eliminated on the north side of that? So, I mean, basically, it almost prevents anybody from turning right if you don't have the flare in the driveway.
Well, you know, I've seen the road, or Department of Roads now, no longer Road Commission, but I have seen the Department of Roads accept that type of directional turn. Now, I don't know that they would necessarily approve it in this particular case. That's really up to them. You could certainly recommend it, but that's really their jurisdiction. You know, sometimes when they don't allow it, it's because what happens is when you put a directional turn in like that, you're forced on an angle, and your safety's compromised as soon as you leave a 90 at the a 90-degree intersection. So in many cases, while you do those flared turns to one direction, you then have more than a 45 over your shoulder to see oncoming traffic from the other direction. So there's good and bad with that.
So that would be something that could be petitioned, and the road commission would make or Department of Roads would make a decision on that.
Yes, they would make that decision. Now, they would probably respect certainly a no right turn sign out of there. And quite frankly, that would probably be obeyed just about as much as the,
Well, and that's why I guess I was looking at actually, reconfiguring the flow.
yeah, I mean, the person who's going to take that right regardless is gonna do it whether you have the flared turn or without the flared turn, if the sign is posted, that is. I, from personal experience, just witnessed that today. So,
This would be
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
Which makes it more difficult, well, more difficult, along with signage.
Yeah, I think the signage, and if they start going through, somebody go on the tops and go on this,
I think he would like to talk to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Just wanted to add a comment on the right turn only, or the right turn out. In most cases, those are ignored by motorists, especially in areas where they're not expecting to see them. And this isn't a real high traffic volume area necessarily, like Metro Parkway would be. So drivers wouldn't be expecting to see them. And this is also an instance where you're gonna have a lot of people pulling trailers, and they're gonna end up riding up over that curb and breaking it and causing wheel ruts and stuff in that area. So it's, even when we put them in areas where they are anticipated and needed, most of the time they're ignored. It's just the way that it works.
That's good to know.
I don't think I'd worry about the flare.
I think your direction split on this is probably gonna be 98% from Metro Parkway and 2%
Yeah.
in the other direction. Most of this clientele's coming out of town, so there's no one coming down.
Patrick, can I ask you one question?
Yes, sir.
Do you feel that they have taken care of the 8 standards of the criteria? Do you feel?
You know, I feel that the design addresses the zoning ordinance standards. With regard to the 8 standards, you know, my only concern is protecting that residential property to the north. And, you know, traffic was less of a concern to me. I think you 99% of your trip split is going to come from Metro Parkway, I think regardless of whether or not there's a right turn sign or not a right turn sign. But I like the idea of putting it there to make sure people know that it's an unwelcome move.
But with all the other businesses that would be, that could be possible to be built there, this would probably be the less use, traffic-wise?
I think your traffic generation rate for this type of use is going to be extremely low compared to
Something else
a
that could.
convenience store or, you know, multitude of different uses that could go in there, so.
Okay, thank you.
So sort of to piggyback onto that, when I was looking at acceptable uses, and if you talk about, and again, I'm not an expert, but if you talk about people using these uses, I think these, and I'll read them, could generate more traffic going into the residential area. Catering business, a dance hall or a studio, eating and drinking establishments, so you have people that could be, you know, intoxicated and turning into the residential area. Home appliance and consumer electronics stores, auto parts, professional or medical office uses, general retail sales, just some of the things that could go there without a special land use.
If I can make a comment, I don't think anything is gonna drive as much traffic to that area as Prentice Point Apartments is right now. I mean, I think anything else that you put in that piece of property, a boat dealership, I think you're gonna be dealing with maybe, if you deal with a dozen trailers a day on a busy day, that'll probably be about as most, and how many are gonna come from South River? If you drive your trailer down Prentice, where it's ruddy, with your trailer one time, you're gonna do it one time maybe, and that's gonna be, then you're gonna come in off a 16-mile road. So, I mean, I understand, I totally agree with the no right-hand turn issue, but I don't really feel like, but I think we're kind of splitting hairs when we're thinking there's gonna be a lot of traffic coming through that residential area. I don't think that's gonna impact that piece of property whatsoever.
There were some concerns that were voiced by people on that subject, and I kind of wanted to follow that up. And also, the day is coming sooner or later when Prentice is going to be paved to a nice, decent street that could become a raceway easily.
Then you'll be dealing with other issues too.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I'm sure you'll be dealing with speed issues.
Sometimes it's this is anticipatory is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's not, you know,
I have
anticipating
no
that
issue with
type
the
of
right-hand turn.
development
I
there.
understand exactly where you're coming from there, Mr. McDougal. It's just, like I said, I just think that the traffic flow in that area is something that is not gonna be detrimental to that piece of property.
And 6 months out of the year, they don't do hardly anything in the wintertime. Go to
You know,
Florida.
it's the springtime when you probably have the most traffic, when people
Sure.
are kicking the tires and finding when they want to
Yeah.
vote. But yes, you probably don't have that much traffic any one day, even during the busy time.
Yeah.
And then fall, when you're doing your winter prep and things of that nature, so.
They're probably a little bit, yes.
Any other questions for the applicant? Comments? Motion.
I would like to make a motion to approve the plans contingent on the no right turn sign that Mr. McDougal had mentioned, and the possibility of looking at the screening issues that we had discussed a little bit ago in terms of how much deciduous trees are going to be needed. I feel that the applicant has done everything that they can possibly do to work with the township and to provide good plans, and they seem to be very willing to work with us. So I'd like to make a motion based on those two issues, please.
We have a motion to approve the special land use contingent on the no right turn and the screening issues on the north side as previously discussed. Do I have a second?
One second.
Mr. Garvin? Mr. Olgiati, Mr. Garvin. Discussion on the motion.
Do we not need to specify the screening on the north side, continuation of the
Excuse me.
trees
Yes.
spaced at 30-foot, it says 30-foot centers on this plan again.
If you're gonna require, you know, evergreens for screening, I would recommend a 20-foot spacing on center. Eventually, you know, those, as the trees mature, those will grow together at the base.
Okay.
And so, Mr. McDougal, were you asking for, from the beginning of the property on Prentice, all the way up to the storm, water detention area?
Yes, and I don't think it's at the right at the beginning of the property.
I'm
on
sorry, not at
Prentice.
the beginning,
I think it
but
should be
yeah,
at the corner established by the line of trees that
Okay.
are running north-south
Got it.
alongside Prentice. I think from there back. And the question I have is, regarding that, is, you said, Madam Chair, run them back to the detention pond.
Did you wanna go all the way?
But that area is, again, residential behind the
Right, it is.
retention pond, and I would think
So,
some screening of the retention
All the way
pond
to the
needs
final
to be,
corner?
needs to be provided for whoever is gonna develop this area here as residential behind the
Mm-hmm. So
pond.
that covers the north side. I think there was
Needs to run the
discussion.
length of it.
Excuse me. The minutes from the last meeting discussed the north and the west side. While we're talking about this, did we want to then also include the east side that's wide open, even though right now it backs up to an open area?
That's all
But
commercial.
that's all.
That's
It is all
commercial, I'm
commercial,
not as
right,
concerned
you're not
about
as
that, I
concerned about
don't
that,
think
okay.
it's
Excuse me.
being commercial,
The next guy that builds can have that.
he can put them on the other side of the property line.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on the motion? So are you making that, Mr. Olgiati, are you making, an adjustment to your motion as recommended by Mr. McDougal to extend the evergreens, down the north side of the property from the property line to meet the existing tree line on the, west side, and the placement to be every 20 feet?
I don't have an issue with that as long as that's what's required by the ordinance itself.
It's not, it's
It's not
something,
required.
it's
more
it's something that we
Right.
would be requesting to protect the residential area.
Okay.
It's more
And-
restrictive than
Okay.
what the ordinance requires.
And that's part of why they're here under this
Right.
process, is for our judgment to kick in, and Mr. Maher's indicating that the 20-foot spacing is the appropriate thing to provide this kind of screening that will protect the residential property to the north.
I'd be happy to amend my motion then, yes.
And Mr. Garvin, you amend your support?
Yes, yes.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I think that Mr. Olgiati should indicate in his motion a comment that the planning commission feels that the applicant meets the 8 special land use standards.
thank you,
Ah, yes.
thank you. So, Mr. Olgiati, do you want to restate your motion and then include, as our council suggests?
Sure. Do you want me to go through all the different standards?
You can, or you can just reference that you feel they meet. I believe that's acceptable. Okay.
Or you can accept, the
Yeah.
letter that he had submitted and you're, in agreement with each of those standards.
I feel that, I'd like to make a motion that the applicant has met all the 8 standards for criteria, in addition to the instance that we discussed with the screening and no right turn. I have no issue amending my motion based on that.
And Mr. Mr. Garvin,
Yes,
you amend your support?
yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Excuse me.
one more thing, I just want to make sure, and I guess I didn't listen close enough to the motion, but this is a recommendation, it's not a vote of approval.
No, actually,
This is a vote of approval.
no,
This is a
that's,
vote. It's
I
not a
know,
recommendation to the board?
Yes.
forgive
Yeah.
me, Mr. Tominello, that was my mistake.
Okay.
I had this and another item confused when I was, trying to keep my cases straight, catching up. Since I missed the last meeting, I
That's what you
apologize.
get for taking a month.
I know. So I apologize for that.
Thank you very much.
So, yeah, so, any other discussion on the clarified motion?
Yeah,
Mr. Batchor?
yeah, that being said, I'd just like to state that, based upon, my background and experience, I am of the opinion that the documents provided for the special land use did not persuade me that the proposed use was of such location and character that will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the surrounding neighborhood.
Is that number 6?
Therefore, I am of the opinion that standard 1 was not satisfied, and as such, I'm not support that all 8 standards were met.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Roll call, please, Mr. Olgiati.
Member Olgiati, yes. Member Garvin?
Yes.
Member Tominello?
Yes.
Member Abasha?
No?
Member McDougal?
Yes.
Member Blum?
No.
Chair Murray?
Yes. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, no new business, no correspondence. Comments from the planner, please?
Madam Chair, I have no other comments for you tonight.
No.
So,
Okay. Comments from the floor? Mr. Bardell, good evening.
William Bardell, 19-year resident, New Kid on the Block. I just want to comment on this last job number. Larry Tominello, I left you an email and asked you all about compromise, if you could hold these guys to a limit of boats that they were going to store outside. So I didn't hear anything about the number, again, a special land use, of how many boats were going to be stored outside. How many boats is the guy going to have in stock? Is he going to have 100 boats out there? Is he going to have 20, 30? What is the compromise for the special land use? I emailed you, Mr. Larry Tominello. There was no I didn't hear any compromise on how many boats were going to be outside of the showroom. 10, 20, 30, 100, 200? What is it? What's the number going to be? Okay? So that wasn't addressed. Needless to say, I didn't get a reply. The other thing is, on this McEnray, I don't know any backyard patio that doesn't have a ramp. If not for the waitresses that carry 10 trays, 10 dinners on their thing, you're always going to have a ramp. This is basic stuff. Please, somebody. A ramp is basic. You're going to give it to the tech committee? Not a good idea. You got to have a ramp. This is very basic stuff. And the other thing is, Larry, I emailed you on what the compromise was going to be on how many boats were going to be stored outside. 10, 20, 30. It's limitless now. Pandora's box has been opened. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bardell. Anyone else?
I just have a few comments.
Please come up. Let us know who you are.
My name is Patricia Kubik, and I've lived in here, Saracen Township, 13, 14 years. I live in the Riverbend subdivision, so my husband and I were at this meeting last month, I guess. And I guess I just want to say, I'm not one to be a Norma Ray that much, but just listening to you guys, I just kind of feel really unheard. You know, there was probably 4 or 5 other residents that were much better prepared than I was. I just made some general comments that obviously I don't want this boat dealership built, because I love all the green space in Harrison Township. But some of the other residents were really holding you guys to all the rules and regs of it. So I felt like everybody made a really good presentation. But listening to you now, I just feel like all of those concerns were unheard. And you know, when you talk about there was some discussion on the traffic, I don't know the gentleman's name, but he was talking about how the speed limit is not enforced on Prentice, that 3 or 4 times a year cars end up in ditches. So when I hear you say it's not going to be a problem, clearly I wish this guy was here to say, yes, it is. But I guess I just want to say, I don't feel like any of the residents' concerns were fully addressed. I just kind of feel like you guys, you know, listened to us, but already checked approved. And I have to say, unfortunately, I'm walking away with the feeling that my neighborhood is now wrecked. And that is a really bad feeling. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you for your comments.
200 boats there.
Yeah.
No limit.
The fire department will limit whatever they can put in there.
Yeah, you're right. Give it to the tech committee.
You know, Madam Chair, just for clarification, the site plan does not allow for any outdoor boat
Correct.
storage.
Thank you,
so
Mr. Maher. Yes, I had read that as well.
Just wanted to make
Yeah,
that clear,
so
so
they're-
Mr. Bard, you haven't seen all the new plans, Mr. Bardell, but there is no outdoor boat storage permitted as part of this site plan.
And I would like to make, I know this is comments from the floor, but if I could, I would like to make a comment and a request. Having missed the May meeting, I looked toward the local channel to find it so that I could watch it in addition to the minutes, and could not. I'm extremely frustrated that I don't know who handles that part of the maintenance of displaying the meetings, making sure that they're displayed on a regular basis, and that they're up to date. They're failing. At one point, I had requested the minutes be displayed on the website, not the minutes, the meetings be displayed on the website like the Board of Trustee meetings are.
video.
Yes, the video. And I find it useful, and I think the residents find it useful as well. So I'm making a formal request to the department who handles that, to make sure that not only the planning commission, but the zoning board of appeals meetings are placed on the website in addition to the board of trustee meetings, and that they're changed out for every new meeting, for the benefit of all of us. So I don't know if I need to write a letter, or if I can make that request from this position.
That
But-
request would be to the treasurer's office and the supervisor's office. Madam Chair, you can make it, or we can ask Sabrina to make that request as well.
I will impart that to you, and I would feel comfortable making that phone call as well, and I don't know if that's something that needs to be brought to the board level.
I can bring that up at the board level as well.
Okay, I just think it's important, and I was really feeling, I mean, I know I'm supposedly able to go to the library and check out a disc, and I did not follow with that, and I probably should have. I don't even know if that's still available. I don't think you get a disc anymore. At one time, I know you did, but,
Once it's gone, been on, the library's kind of the last stop, so if it's not on cable yet, it's not gonna be at the library.
oh, well, that's good to know. Okay. Okay, that's it. I'm off my soapbox.
Soapbox is being in order tonight, I guess. I just want to step back on a soapbox because it's something I spoke rather strongly about last year, or maybe it was closer to 2 years ago. And that was the sign that was to be placed, the big billboard sign on top of the place by the North River Road exit. And I made a very strong argument that it was distractive, much like the cell phone distractions and everything else. And there's enough distractions at that exit now, and I think that I sent an email to members of the commission saying, have you driven there lately? Because I happened to go by there a couple days after, and use that exit a couple days after I had seen a bunch of construction stuff going on from the road commission there, and I realized that they upped the degree of signage on that
Oh, yeah.
exit several fold to warn people at that exit. And that's without the billboard sign being up there yet as a distraction. I've thought for years that the softball fields and everything there were a huge distraction for people using that exit in their cars. And we made the right decision. The board made the right decision. The court turned it the other way, and I'm just making that point that I think we acted properly on a solid ground, because amongst other things, the road commission is confirming that there's a problem on that exit. So,
Yeah.
One of you sent me an email, must
It was
have been
me.
Mr.
Yeah.
Daigle, but yeah, I read that and did exactly what you were doing. Drove through there and said, yeah, that's, couldn't be more apparent now.
yeah, that's, thank you to our judicial system, thank you.
Well said. Anything else? Well, our next meeting, I'm sorry?
I do, just for sake of clarification, so as it pertains to the amendments to the ordinance, So, my question is, once, adopted by the board, then I heard, well, Rosemary, you have to make modifications before it goes to board. So,
I'm just gonna take the changes that Patrick presented and you approved and put them in an ordinance format, and then
Right.
it'll be on the township board
right,
agenda.
so the question was then, as it relates to a process for, delivery to, residents and whatnot, it just becomes fundamentally an amendment to our October 21st document, and it just gets attached singularly as an exhibit. It doesn't get rolled into the entire document, does it?
I typically bring you replacement pages.
Oh, okay, and then, but they'll be denoted that that page was changed?
That's correct.
For you, but on the website, it'll just show up as a change, and then the codification company will note ordinance number, whatever this ordinance number is gonna be made an amendment,
Yes,
and it'll just show as a change.
Very well.
It'll read like you wouldn't know that there was a change, except for noting that an ordinance did make an amendment to that section online.
yes, very well.
The old stuff goes away, the new stuff appears. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, probably a more complicated question, but pertaining to the same, item. So, the October 21st, 2015 ordinance that we now all have in front of us, without getting into too much detail, but, I think you'll follow me when I go here. The entire formatting of this is completely different than the specific document that we all approved, okay? And I think we get all that. Now, so the question is, it strikes me that given that, and I'm only speaking relative to the format, but I think I have a sense of what happened here. Being that the format is so not strategic, just so paramountly, so majorly different, that it strikes me that somebody actually took time to retype every word that was in that other document to come up with this format?
I doubt if that's the case. My guess would be that it was electronically transformed into whatever format that the municipal code company uses. So I would assume they took an electronic format and transferred it over, but they may have retyped it as well.
So it's only my vision, fair point, this is where I'm poking with the question. So you just look at it visually, and you can see that visually it's completely different in context, okay? I don't know if the words are, so the point of my question is then, could somebody then get confirmation from the firm that took the document that we approved, and then just by way of affidavit or something that you find to be right, just say, A, the process was we electronically took all data and electronically just modified it to the format, or B, did we retype it? Because if it becomes B, then obviously the question go, there might be risk that the retyping may have created a conflict different than what we verbally approved. Following where I'm going with this then?
Yes, yes.
So you just gotta start with the first question, how did that firm take that document and convert it to this document is the first question. The answer may lead us to another, step.
You know, and to add to that, and not to make this more confusing, but I'm offering to give you replacement pages, and I guess that probably wouldn't work because my format is no longer there. I would have to then retype everything or reformat everything to fit this new format. But you will get replacement pages eventually from the municipal code company as it gets finalized out, so. I guess the best I can do is give you replacement pages that fit the original draft that we adopted, and I don't think the board had made any significant changes to that, so.
So just the structure is different.
Right.
Do you
So
have a
that
copy?
with my, so just want to follow, so with my
Excuse me.
request, if it's reasonable, with everybody here, I don't know who over there would be the person to make the request just to get the answer.
It would be the clerk's office, because they're the one that sends it to the publication company.
If we find that the question is valid. It's just me looking at it, if no one shares
No,
that.
I looked at the same thing, and actually, I did pose a question to Mr. Witt about that, and he did say that's in fact what happened. The publication company.
Reformatted?
Yes.
electronically though.
Yes.
Took all the data
Yes.
from a Word file or whatever file you're using.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been from a Word file. They probably would have had to use a PDF to convert it to Word to put in there, because it was done in a program called InDesign, which is a page layout program. That's not the correct terminology, but I forget what the professionals call that, but you know, my computer whiz here is failing too. But anyway, it used to be called PageMaker, and it's a program that's used commonly for publishing, and it's a little bit easier moving text around in pictures.
So we're comfortably assured that the document is the same as our draft, just formatted a little bit differently.
Madam Chair, your ordinances remain on file, so as it was adopted, just like you see it. So that stays at the township level. Then they send that ordinance to the codification company.